I was shocked when I was diagnosed with advanced Hodgkin's lymphoma. I had always been healthy, exercised, ate well, and went to my doctor regularly. The doctor couldn't explain why I got cancer, but even though the chances of surviving were slim, I decided to fight. After I found out about my diagnosis, I sat down with my wife, Daisy, and our daughter, Luna, to tell them. They were heartbroken, but I promised I would fight as hard as I could. Still, I worried about how this might affect our family. The doctor warned that chemotherapy could be very hard on me, and many marriages don't survive it. That night, I talked to Daisy about my worries. She told me she would stand by me no matter what. We were financially secure, with good insurance, savings, and a trust fund from my late grandfather. Our house was paid off, and I had money set aside for Luna's college education just in case. A week later, I started chemotherapy. It was extremely draining. After each treatment, I felt like I had been hit by a truck. I could barely take care of myself, let alone do simple things like eat, bathe, or walk. Daisy and Luna helped me with everything: cooking, cleaning, driving me to treatments, and filling my prescriptions. I tried not to ask too much of them and helped when I could. This went on for 2 months, but I started to notice tension from Daisy and Luna. They seemed annoyed when I asked for help. Even Luna stopped helping me with small things, like getting me a glass of water. The breaking point came one day when I had an early chemo appointment. I was running late, and Daisy hadn't come downstairs yet. When I called to check on her, she said I should take an Uber because she was tired. I was shocked, but I didn't know what else to do. So I called an Uber and told the hospital I needed help since Daisy wouldn't be coming with me. The Uber driver was really nice and made sure I got to the hospital safely. She even offered to drive me back home after my treatment. I was grateful, but it felt sad to depend on a stranger for help. When I got home, I decided I had to talk to Daisy and Luna about their behavior. I asked if they felt like I was too much of a burden. Daisy admitted that she felt overwhelmed, and Luna said she didn't expect me to need so much help. I suggested we hire a nurse to come a few days a week to help me with daily tasks and take me to my chemo appointments. I also ordered a wheelchair for the days when I would be too weak. They agreed, and I contacted the hospital. They sent a nurse who was kind but firm. She made sure I never missed a treatment, gave me my medication on time, and even helped me plan healthy meals. Things seemed to improve as the doctors were happy with my progress, but my wife and daughter still weren't satisfied. My wife, especially, felt like the nurse was replacing her. I told her that if she wanted to take over the nurse's duties, like driving me to chemo, giving me my medicine, and making sure I ate, we could let the nurse go. The nurse was hired because I needed more help than my wife could provide, and she reluctantly agreed. She even suggested finding a male nurse, but I explained there weren't any available on the hospital's list. The nurse we had was chosen because of her experience with cancer patients and understanding of my needs. She was kind, respectful, and very good at her job. I told my wife that the nurse would stay unless she was willing to take on the responsibilities herself. She didn't like that idea and argued that I should try to do more on my own instead of making everyone else handle everything. I tried to explain that there were days when I could barely get out of bed because of the chemo. In anger, she stormed upstairs and slammed doors, but I decided to ignore her. I was focusing on getting better. Later that evening, I got a call from my mother-in-law, who was upset about the nurse being in the house. I explained politely that I needed help and that my wife couldn't provide the level of care I needed, so I had to hire the nurse. I told her it was just temporary until my treatment was over. She wasn't entirely convinced, but she stopped bothering me. For a week after that, things seemed normal. My treatments were going well. Then one day, I came home from chemo to find a moving truck outside. My wife and daughter had packed up their things and were leaving to stay with her mother. I was hurt, but I was so exhausted that I couldn't express my feelings properly. The timing felt cruel. She knew I'd be too tired to fight back. I asked my daughter if this was what she wanted, and she said she'd rather live with her mother because it was too hard living with me. That hit me hard. It was everything I feared when I first started chemo, feeling abandoned. Then my brother stepped in to help. He noticed the nurse spending extra time with me and asked if I had anyone nearby to support me. He lived 3 hours away but offered to come stay with me for a while. He was furious at what my wife had done, calling her selfish and ungrateful. He pointed out that she had never had to work and I always took care of her. My brother couldn't stay long, but he had another idea. His wife's sister, Kara, was going through a tough divorce and needed a place to stay. She was studying at a nearby university, and my house was closer to campus. It seemed like a good solution. She could help with emergencies, and I could provide her with a safe place to stay. I agreed, telling my brother Kara wouldn't need to pay rent. I didn't mind. My wife and daughter had taken almost everything, so there was plenty of space. Kara moved in and was very grateful. She promised to be helpful and respectful, and she kept her word. She helped with groceries, cleaning, and cooking without complaining. A month and a half later, I got the best news. I was cancer-free. I rang the bell at the hospital to celebrate. My nurse asked what I wanted to do now that I was better, and I immediately decided to file for divorce. It was time to leave a marriage that hadn't supported me during my illness. With the divorce underway, I focused on my recovery. Slowly, I got stronger, my hair grew back, and my scars healed. I stuck to my healthy eating plan but allowed myself some treats now and then. It's been 6 months since I was declared cancer-free, and I'm finally ready to move forward with my life. I called my old job, and they're willing to rehire me for remote work if I decide to return. I think I'll take them up on the offer because I'm planning to move. While I have some attachment to my house, there are just too many painful memories here. I'm craving a fresh start in a smaller place. My wife doesn't know yet, but I'm planning to give the house to Kara. She helped me so much when I was at my lowest, even though we barely knew each other. If she wants, she can sell it. I don't want anything to do with it, especially if it means my wife or daughter could take it. I found a new place in a quiet countryside neighborhood, and I'm excited for this new chapter in my life. Update 1. Hey, wife and daughter, it's been over a year since my diagnosis, and I've settled into my new place and neighborhood. I've met a lot of friendly people here, including my neighbor, Sophia. She's a widow who lives alone, and her kids only visit during Christmas and her birthday. Sophia invited me over for drinks and shared the sad story of losing her husband to lung cancer. She stressed how important life insurance was for her family's financial security. While we were talking, I told her about what happened with you too. I haven't heard from you in over a year, but I've come to accept it. I've been focusing on new hobbies, like woodworking, and I'm starting to build a collection of tools. One day, I came back from the hardware store, and Sophia told me she saw some people hanging around my house. They didn't do anything harmful, but they knocked on the door, wandered around the house, and then waited in their car. Sophia considered calling the sheriff's office but didn't, thinking they might be family. I asked her to describe them, and it sounded like it was you and Luna. I was surprised you found my new address because only my brother and his wife know where I live. I can't understand why you would come looking for me after leaving without a word almost a year ago. Sophia told me that if you came back, I shouldn't go outside, and she would handle it. Honestly, I don't want to talk to you after how you left me when I was at my lowest. Later, I called my brother, and he told me you've been bothering Kara and her roommate at the old house. Luckily, Kara had proof that the house is in her name now, and she had explained to you that she bought it for me. I felt bad that Kara had to deal with this, so I called her to apologize. Hopefully, I can handle the situation if you show up again. As for you, I'm not sure if you've received the divorce papers yet. My lawyer sent them to your mom's house, but maybe they just threw it out. At this point, I don't really care. We're done. Update 2. My wife and daughter showed up again, but this time it was during the day while I was working. I heard the knock, so I checked the security cameras, and sure enough, it was them. My ex-wife looked the same, but Luna had grown a lot. She looked like a young woman now. I followed the plan Sophia and I had discussed: stay inside, but get closer to the door to hear better. Sophia, being a good neighbor, went out to greet them. My wife asked if she knew a man named Charlie who used to live there. Sophia was confused and asked what she meant by used to. My wife explained that her husband, not ex-husband, had lived here before he died after a long hospital stay. This shocked me because I knew there was no record of my death at the hospital. My wife said they were the next of kin and implied that the house belonged to them. Sophia told them someone named Charlie did live here but that he was divorced. She added that I had told her my wife had left me and that I had filed for a unilateral divorce. Sophia also mentioned that I planned to leave my assets to charity. Since my only family was my brother, she found it strange to see two women snooping around the house. The conversation went silent for a moment, and then Sophia asked if they had a death certificate or a will. They said no. Sophia explained that if they had those documents, they could take them to the county's record office to get the deed in their name. My wife didn't like this suggestion and yelled at Sophia, saying she had no right to interfere in her business. I felt embarrassed. The people in this neighborhood had been kind to me, and here my ex-wife was causing a scene. Part of me wanted to confront her, but I stuck to the plan. Sophia apologized and explained she was just trying to help, then went back to her house. My ex-wife and Luna left soon after. After work, I went over to Sophia's to apologize. She brushed it off, saying while she didn't like how my wife acted, she found it kind of funny. I couldn't agree, though. I know my ex-wife can be hot-headed. If she ever comes back, I'm going to tell her to leave me alone for good. She showed up again yesterday. I was working in my home office when I heard a loud crash. I rushed into the living room and found that my front window had been smashed, and there were people outside yelling. I thought there might be some crazy person causing trouble, and I wasn't too far off. It was my ex-wife. She had broken my window, and my neighbors were trying to stop her. Apparently, she had been making a lot of noise, but I didn't hear it because I had my noise-canceling headphones on while working. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have heard anything even if I hadn't taken a break. When I went outside, Two of my elderly neighbors were trying to hold my ex-wife back from causing more damage. Both she and Luna were holding bats and had already destroyed some of my potted plants. I grabbed my ex-wife by the arm and asked if she had lost her mind. She was shocked to see me, alive, I guess. I told both her and Luna to leave before I called the cops. I didn't know it at the time, but my neighbors had already called the police. My ex-wife seemed hurt by what I said and asked why I hadn't contacted her after I got better. She insisted that she and Luna would have come back. I reminded her that when we got married, we promised to stay together in sickness and in health, but she broke that promise. I told her I wanted nothing to do with her anymore. I sent the divorce papers months ago. I told her to leave again. Then she brought up Luna, saying she was going to college next year and couldn't pay for tuition alone. I told her, your daughter was fine with abandoning me, too, and I'm ready to give up all my parental rights to you. You should have thought about that before leaving me. I want nothing to do with either of you. She went from upset to angry, calling me selfish and heartless, which I found pretty funny considering the situation. I yelled back at her, calling her an entitled jerk and saying she would never get a penny from me again. Then, she swung the bat at me. Just as the cops showed up, they arrested both her and Luna right away. The cops asked if I wanted to press charges, and of course, I said yes. My ex-wife and Luna started crying as they were put into the police car, but I felt no sympathy. I had everything on camera, including my ex-wife smashing the window, and I had already sent the footage to the police. After work, I ordered a new window and cleaned up the glass. Someone will come to fix it tomorrow, but for now, I've put a tarp over it to block out the weather. Sophia gave me some buckets to put my plants in until I can replace the pots. I was curious about what brought my ex-wife back, so I did some digging. I found out her mom passed away 2 months ago, and they found out that the house they were living in didn't actually belong to her or her husband, it belonged to his cousin. The cousin kicked them out because he wanted to sell the house. With both of her parents gone, she and Luna sold most of their things and had been living in a motel when they came back to our old house in Saqqara. They thought I had died and started snooping around for information about my assets, which is how they found me. Now, they're facing charges for vandalism, attempted break-in, and attempted assault. Since Luna is a minor, she's getting community service, but my ex-wife is facing jail time because this was clearly planned. I'm also thinking about getting a restraining order, at least for now. I don't have to worry about her for a long time.